Welcome back. The House Select Committee on China is praising President Trump's second term, writing on X this: 100 days in, and the toughest China strategy in a generation is already taking shape. From tariffs to tech theft, fentanyl to outbound investment, President Trump is taking action, and the Select Committee is leading the fight in Congress. The chairman of that committee, Moolenaar, is leading the charge in Congress. He wrote this in an op-ed: Trump's tariffs opened the door. Now Congress must end China's trade privileges. Joining me now is the man himself, House China Select Committee Chairman Moolenaar. Mr. Chairman, always a pleasure to see you. Thanks so much for joining me this morning.
Thanks for having me, Maria. Good to see you, too.
So what do you want to do? You just heard my interview with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, I hope, on China. What do you want to see this administration do in terms of getting tough against China, and how do you pick up the ball in Congress?
Well, first, we need to make sure that Congress is following up and taking action. President Trump is leading the way on these tariffs. I believe in a structured approach with defense-related technologies, making sure we have high tariffs there, and then flexibility on the other areas. But one of the things that President Trump did that his predecessor did not is focused on the problem of fentanyl. You know, our committee found that China was actually giving a tax rebate to chemical companies that would export the chemical precursors of fentanyl that's killing hundreds of thousands of Americans. And if I were to say one thing right away is Xi Jinping needs to stop exporting fentanyl to the United States.
Well, I mean, isn't there a role for corporate America here, Mr. Chairman? I mean, the fact is that so many companies want to sell their widgets to the 1.3 or 1.4 billion people in communist China without even focusing on the national security issues at hand here. What do you want to say to companies out there who are looking at this as an economic issue and not necessarily as a national security issue?
It's important to consider that our economy is based on freedom. And we do not want to have an economy that's based on surveillance, oppression, leading the way on these things. So companies that are investing in our demise, if you will, investing in China's military-industrial complex, investing in supply chains that rely on forced labor, that needs to end. And we need to be strong and be clear about the importance of the American way of life, not the way of the CCP.
Well, how's it going to end if we've got all these Chinese stocks on our exchanges in ETFs where ordinary investors are buying those stocks thinking that they're buying into China's growth story, quote unquote, and not necessarily buying into funding the expansion of China's military, which, by the way, could turn their guns against us? I mean, look, you recently sent a letter to JPMorgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon and Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan, and you demanded that those banks withdraw from the upcoming IPO deal with a firm that the Department of Defense has designated a Chinese military company. That's cattle, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Have you heard back? Have you heard back from them?
We actually have, and I look forward to a full discussion. And it's important to note that cattle is very strongly linked to the People's Liberation Army. It's also linked to supply chains based on forced labor. We ban the use of cattle products in our military, and it's something that we should not have American investors funding the rise of the Chinese military-industrial complex. So I look forward to further discussions. We've called on them to basically remove themselves from that process, and I hope they follow this advice.
So you heard back from them. Are they going to back out of the IPO?
That's what we want to have a follow-up discussion on sooner rather than later, because that is our recommendations. We are calling for that. And it's important that the American people understand that they don't want their retirements or their investments invested in an entity that actually is a threat to American interests. So we appreciate the opportunity to have these further discussions with them.
Yeah, Congressman, we want to talk more about this at another time. We wish we had more time on this because you're spot on, and I so appreciate your leadership on the subject. Mr. Chairman, thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you, Maria.